Hey everybody, Don Georgevich here. Welcome to 7 Days to Mastering the Art of the Interview. This is Module 6, Interviewing to Take Home the Gold. Let's get started. So in this video, we are going to cover company research, or how to do company research, how to shake hands. I know we already covered that in a previous module, but we're going to touch on it again. It's really important. Preparation, but not memorization. People often confuse that. Questions that you can ask the interviewer, mental preparation, closing the interview, and the ever critical following up after the interview. Interviewing is kind of like being selected to compete in the Olympics. I mean, you've already outperformed hundreds or maybe even thousands of competitors, and you're down to the final round. And at this point, you're really competing with the best of the best. So how can you leave with the gold, or they offer, and become the champion? One of the most important things you can do is research the company that you're going to be interviewing with. Because if you think about it, I mean, how can you convincingly show interest in a position that's going to take you about 25% of the hours in your week when you have absolutely no knowledge of the general job description, the company, its goals, or its current events? Well, I'll tell you, the short of it is you can't. But here's what you can do, and how to understand the company with which you're going to be interviewing with. One thing you can do is go to the company's website and get their annual report, and you can read through that. It might not be all that interesting, but you might be able to glean a few important facts about it. Another thing you can do, visit their website, read about where they're headed, the direction, where they're going, any media coverage on them. You can also look at their Standard & Poor's, their corporate records, their stock records. This might be a little overkill for most people, but it kind of just depends on the position that you're interviewing for and the company that you're interviewing with. For smaller companies, you can always call the city's Chamber of Commerce, because smaller companies aren't going to have all these big corporate records and stuff, so you can just call the local community Chamber of Commerce in which they're in, and you can get some information about them that way. They're going to appreciate any kind of information that you can bring to the interview about them, or any little pieces that you dig up. For every company that you interview with, I would suggest creating this following checklist that I'm going to cover with you. One of the most important things is, what services or products do they sell? Find out who is their competition. Who do they compete with? This could be really good conversation pieces when you're in the interview, and you can talk about their competition and what they're doing, and you can be a little bit biased and about how this company that you're interviewing with does it a little bit better than their competition. Sales. Do they have any large increase or decrease in sales? I mean, if you do some digging and you find out that their sales are tanking, maybe you really don't want to work there after all. Do they have any new products or services available from the company? This is good stuff to find out about. And if they have some products that they're soon to be released, you can bring those up in the interview. International operations. Do they operate outside the United States or Canada or Europe? You might want to bring this up and, just do a little bit of digging and find out maybe, are they opening up new offices? Whatever. Is there any media information on the company? You can do a little bit of searches on the internet and find out, what the media's take is on this company. Are they in any kind of trouble or legal problems? Good stuff to know. If they have legal problems, you may or may not want to bring that up in the interview. You could. It could be a good conversation piece. You could say something like, hey, I noticed you guys have a lawsuit pending against you. How do you think that's going to affect, moving forward in the next year? Now, these are just some ideas to help you discover more about the company that you're going to be interviewing with. Do you have to do them all? No, of course not. These are just some guidelines to help you create a framework for the type of research that you should be doing. Okay, let's move into the handshake, because this is essential to taking home the gold and nailing the offer. I know we covered this in a previous video, but I just wanted to touch on it again and stress its critical role at this level of the interview. You see, a handshake kind of tells a story about each person. So, do you come from the top? Do you give the power handshake? Do your hands shake very lightly? And now these examples may seem simple, but it's easy to start off poorly with a bad handshake. You want to avoid the light, delicate handshake and the powerful, over-the-top controlling handshake. Ideally, you just want to go in there, give a good, firm, full-handed handshake for both men and women. And I suggest that men shake women's hands. I suggest that women shake women's hands, and vice versa. It's a two-way street. Everybody really should be shaking hands. Moving on here, prepare yourself, but don't memorize. You see, if you try to memorize a response to the question like, what are your biggest strengths, you're going to blurt it out. Privately, you're going to be congratulating yourself on your memory, but your interviewer's going to kind of stare at you in disbelief at how quickly, you answer this question without seeming to give it much consideration. And then your interviewer is going to follow up with something like, so what do you consider your biggest strength? And then, you're going to quickly realize that, well, you really weren't prepared for that one. So instead, what you want to do is quickly think of some challenges in your work background, both positive and negative, and then tie your answer into those challenges, your response, and the results. So let's look at an example of the STAR formula that'll help you answer this question. So the first thing in a STAR is the situation. So let's say you set up the situation as, your sales division. Productivity decreased, and it seemed that your division would not meet or exceed their annual goals. The action that you took was you observed the staff to see where the bottlenecks were occurring. You determined a need for additional employee development and training, and you focused on employee development through intense training. The end result was that you hit corporate budget at a year end, and you were noted by management for exceptional problem solving and turnaround capabilities. So now when they ask you, what is, one of your biggest strengths, your response might be, well, my biggest strength is my ability to identify potential problem areas, solve the problems, and produce results. And then you might give an example and say something like, when my division's productivity decreased, it seemed as though we would not meet or exceed our annual goals. And then you really just continue on with your story about not meeting the goals, just like the way I covered in the previous slides. And that's it. That's a slam dunk answer. And this same scenario would also work if the interviewer asked you something like, describe a difficult situation and how you dealt with it. Or, what would management say about you? When you think through specific situations that you've encountered, this is going to allow you to choose scenarios that are really most appropriate to the question. Okay, let's move on to questions that you should have for the interviewer. And here are some good ones. The first one here is, how does my job fit in with the mission of the organization, corporate performance or profitability? Or, what will I be contributing to the organization? You could be setting yourself up for something like that because they might ask you, well, I don't know, what will you be contributing? But so you have to balance that if that's a good question for you to ask in the interview or not. What makes your company different from others? And don't just say that, but, you might want to mention a competitor, like, what makes your company different from, XYZ company? Another good one you can ask is, what is your corporate culture? And as with any of these, ask the interviewer questions, but don't just ask them questions for the sake of asking questions. Make sure you have a specific reason for knowing the answer. Make sure that the answer to that question is going to help you determine whether you want to work there or not. So if you start asking them every question under the sun, they're going to start to think you're crazy. So make sure your questions have a real purpose. Okay, the next one here is mental preparation. This one may seem a little hokey, but it's really proven to be a good tactic in any high-stress situation. As you arrive early for your interview, at least 15 minutes, and you're waiting to be called in, mentally prepare for your interview. Visualize this. Think about this, okay? Picture the interview going smoothly. Picture the interviewer asking you questions and you answering them perfectly. Just imagine the interviewer telling you that you seemed perfect for the job, as you leave, and you're even more excited about the position. You see, these are just some of the things that should be going through your mind. So if you're nervous, start your mental preparation by taking deep breaths and thinking, you are, and then, fill in the blank. That could be, you are right for the job. This is right for me. I can do this. And you inhale, and you're relaxed, and you exhale. And you repeat this procedure until you are totally relaxed. Avoid thinking, what if they don't like me? You have to get that out of your mind. Or, what if I get stumped? And you need to focus instead on relaxing. Just try it. Mental visualization. It really works. It's worked for me, my clients, and I'm sure it'll work for you too. Okay, next, closing the interview. You're ahead of the competition, and you're on your way to the gold medal, but you get a cramp. Do you stop? No, not a chance. You have to cross the finish line. So the end of the interview, this is your time to close with a positive, very interested in what you've learned kind of close. When the interviewer is closing with, well, if you have no further questions, then we're done. So this is your cue to say one of the following, and don't ask them all. You could say, actually, I'd like to know how I should proceed from here. Should I contact you, or will you be in contact with me? Or you could say, how soon will I hear from you? Or what is the process from here? You could also say, what would distinguish one potential candidate joining your company from another? Or you could say, how do I prove my commitment to the organization? Or, what would it take? Now, like I said, you don't want to ask all these questions. Just the one that is most relevant to your situation. Okay, let's wrap up this lesson with follow-up. Okay, you leave the interview, you feel good about the position, and now you go to your car and you write down what just happened in the interview. And you write down the topics that you discussed, the characteristics that the interviewer described, and the position and other details like that. And this is going to help you write a good thank you letter that shows your interest and that you're a perfect match for the position. I've even got a special book called Perfect Thank You Letters, and it'll show you how to write them. And if that's something that you think you need, you can pick that up. There are, of course, many ways that you can succeed in an interview, and the purpose of this video was just to give you some guidelines on that. But you see, the best advice is just to relax and be yourself. Remember that your interviewer once interviewed for his or her job, and they understand the intensity of the interview process. And by being prepared as possible for your interview, you're going to enhance the qualities that have already made you a great candidate. So just remember that it takes preparation and knowing how to play the game with strategy and excellence to win. Okay, that's all I have for you today. In the last module, which you'll get tomorrow, I'm going to cover follow-up in more detail, and that lesson will be titled Following Up After the Interview. Now, if you're not watching this video at jobinterviewtools.com, you're probably not subscribed to get the full program. So head on over to jobinterviewtools.com/7days and register so you can be sure that you're getting the full program. Plus, you'll even get more resources from me that I only share in email. It's all free, so you have nothing to worry about. Now, if you don't want to wait until tomorrow to receive the next lesson in your email, you can jump to Module 7 right now. All I ask is that you share this on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+. Share it with someone who needs it. And use the share buttons below, and you'll automatically jump to the next lesson. And of course, I would love to hear your comments. Have you used any of these techniques in today's lesson to get the job offer, position yourself to get the job? Have they worked? Or what has worked for you? I'd love to hear your story. And just what have you been doing to stand out in your interviews? Hey, that's all I have for you today. I'm Don Georgevich. Stay on your game. I'm here to help you succeed so you can enjoy a prosperous career and lead a lifestyle that you love. I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.
Hi, Don. This is Dusty. I just wanted to thank you again for all the help you gave my husband with his interview process. My husband has never gone through an interview before. He works in the oil and gas industry and was taking a career change. He decided, or in the same industry, he had to go through numerous interviews in order to obtain a position. In fact, 4 interviews with one company. Your tools helped him so much and helped him be at ease with what he was going through. Thank you so much. My husband did get the job. After this year that we've had, today we smile. I just wanted to thank you again, and I would recommend your product to absolutely anybody. We really appreciate all of your help. Thanks again, and all I could do is say you're awesome. Thanks. Bye.